Hello friends, and welcome to the Collective Awakening podcast, this bonus episode, a special in-person episode, and with myself, Chris and Stephen, and this is going to be a special questions and answers episode. Exciting.
Very exciting.
We're not in our own homes, we're in person here. Yeah. It's very different when you're in person.
It is, but we're going to try to make it as informal as we can and to enjoy. So we both created some questions for each other, and great. Shall we get started?
Yes, we don't know what these questions are, so we've done them and then folded them up so they'll just be chosen at random. So I think you should go first, Stephen, seeing as I'm the one that does most of the talking.
Yes, you do. So let me choose the first question, and the first question is: what role does a spirit guide play in your everyday life? Wow. Your one true spirit guide, I feel that's like what you're asking.
Yeah.
Like your one true guide. People, in my experience, call them your guardian angel, your support worker, your helper, your guide. But ultimately, your guide would be there with you from the beginning, from birth, and also to the end. And what I can talk from my own personal experience is that your one true guide's there to support you, to help you with everyday life. Your spirit guide will not walk behind you or in front of you, but walk side by side. Obviously, they can't come in and interfere. Otherwise, I think we joke about it often, don't we? When if spirit come in and interfere in our progression every 2 minutes, we will never learn because the earth is a school. And I feel sort of as part of your guide's progression, I feel have come back to support you, to inspire you. So if you've got, for me, if I'm going through a bit of a difficult part of my life, my guide would be there. I remember when I lost my cat, Freddie, if you remember, it was a very difficult time where I had to put Freddie, my cat, to sleep. And I remember going to the vet and I knew what was going to happen. I just felt this warm handprint on my arm, this feeling to say, you know what, everything's going to be all right. So I had this feeling and this warm feeling. So I've created this sort of relationship with my guide to know that in times when I need him, I feel him putting his hand on my hand here on my left side. So I know he's there, and it brings great comfort to me. I think the big thing with the work that we've been doing over the years is really knowing that you're never alone.
Yeah, very important.
I think that's very important because there's so many people out there. We do a lot of power readings, don't we? And they always feel that they put the amount of pressure we put ourselves under. And it's your guide saying, just ease off a little bit, Stephen. And sometimes I get this voice in my head saying, Stephen, slow down, patience. That might be my granddad, or most likely probably my spirit guide coming in gently saying, slow down, Stephen. So,
slow down.
Yeah, slow down. So yeah, I hope sort of answered that question for you. So
yeah, one down,
one to go, and 20 more to go.
Woo!
And do you want to choose one of those, please?
I get the feeling that I'd be much gentler with my questions. Okay, my question is, a lot of people are replacing coffee with cacao. What is your positive experience with cacao? Well, my experiences with cacao have been over the past 4 years now. You lose track of time, it goes so fast. And do you know what? I'm trying to draw back my very first experience with cacao, and I think you found some, or you purchased some, and then we went to a cacao ceremony that was being done locally. And at first I actually found it hard to drink cacao because, like everything that's natural, it's a shock to the system, isn't it?
Very bitter.
And then you get used to it. And then we were fortunate to find a lot of really good connections who helped us with recipes. So that was my first experiences with replacing it. Yeah, I think when you start to have something on a regular basis, you start to see how what effect it has on your body, good or not so good, and that I could feel would have a positive effect, energy boosting for the body, feel very positive, very heart opening. I can actually feel my hands tingle when I drink cacao as well. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I feel that energy coming in, and so I would say actually, I've never not had a positive experience with cacao, except when I took that first sip. And I went, oh, I'm not so sure about that, but it was very, very strong. But after that, it's just grown and grown. We've had better experiences all the time. And actually, it's something we should do more of, really. But I made some before we went to a service. I was doing a service in Manchester, and we took some in the car. And then we had the rest of it as well the next day. And it was really had a positive effect on us all, and including our sleep. We all slept really well, didn't we?
Yeah, normally we have cacao and a cacao ceremony and we feel so hype after because we've been dancing a lot. But I think as your friend, I see the positive thing, because you don't mind me saying something, you can be very much in the mind. And then when you're in the heart space, you feel a lot calmer and more chilled. Yeah. You don't feel like you're reacting as much, which is amazing.
Well, I think it takes away that intensity, and something I've been aware, I've been trying to avoid caffeine as well. And it's such a good replacement. And I feel where caffeine is very intense, where cacao isn't. It may bring that same energy boost, but it doesn't have that intensity like, oh, yeah, like a vice. It's too much, too much. And then with anything that gives you such intensity like that, there's always the opposite, the come down, if you will, that'll come after it. And that's what happens with caffeine, where cacao, you don't get that. You don't get that intensity. You get more of a gentleness and more of a flow.
More of a flow, yeah.
Go with the flow. Has that answered your question?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I just sort of asked that question because there's so many people getting into cacao now, and it's such a beautiful medicine. We're so lucky that medicines like that coming over.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to anybody is avoid the powdered stuff that you see in more of the
commercial shops.
Yeah. Thank you. And find somebody who really knows the source of where they're getting the cacao. We know lots of people, and that you're getting a good quality. That's what you want with everything, really, don't you?
Yeah.
So yeah, cacao. If you haven't had it, try it. Amazing.
Okay, shall I choose the next one?
Yes. Have a good shuffle. You just picked.
Okay. Now, I've been very good with you. You sent me really hard questions. And you've written, how would you describe karma? Now, if you would have asked me this 10 years ago, I would have probably answered it very, very differently. And I'm very lucky that I've been involved with a lot of knowledge. And I was only thinking about it today, actually. I was talking to you about it, actually. The more I'm learning, the more I'm finding that I don't know anything. So it's interesting, isn't it? The more I'm delving in and reading books and working on myself, I actually know very, very little. But karma, it has a very negative perspective with a lot of people, because people think karma is a negative thing, and we use it, don't we, in a very negative way. I know I have sometimes. Oh, that's your karma, and that's not for me to say that that's your karma, because you can have good karma, and actually all karma, I think it should be seen as good, because it's just rectifying the things, the stumbles, the falls that you may have made in this life and a previous life. I know through previous readings and my own inner work that I've done, that I've come back personally to work on some of my karma and psychic debt. So I see it now not as a punishment, but rather as a positive way to grow, to let go, and to most importantly heal through my remembering who I am as a soul. And to really, and karma for me also, what I've come to learn is actually the people that I've met on my journey, both physical, family, relationships and friends, have been a blessing, even though it's not always been easy. I mean, we talked about a lot here at the Purple Mountain that people have come in our lives and left, that at the time it stings and it hurts at that time, but we've come to understand very deeply that these people are our greatest teachers. So in a way you can talk about that in a karmic perspective. So I can now look back in gratitude, not always, because I still get a headache, I still get stressed. And so for me, on my personal experience, karma is something that I'm still working on, and and that's it, really. So I couldn't talk from my own experience.
Yeah, quite a big subject as well. So
massive subject.
Yeah.
So really, I often have talked about my relationship with my family growing up and my childhood not being easy. But through a lot of the plant medicine work, I've really come to see things in a very positive perspective, to know that those people that have come back to play those roles for me have been for my benefit.
Yeah.
And you look at the collective as well, when we look through COVID, that the people that have come back, politicians, people that we see as negative or evil, have actually, a lot of them have come back to play that role to help as part of our awakening. So again, it's changing perspective. It's not them or us. It's not, oh, you're bad and I'm good. This punishment society that we've created, we're all in it together. Well, we're all working on each other, aren't we?
Exactly, yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, Chris, the next one. I was a bit apprehensive at first. I'm getting into it.
Oh, God, you've written so small on this as well. I should have worn my glasses. What advice would you give people who are struggling to live in this world? God, first thing that comes to mind is, well, you've chose it. You've chose it? Yeah, that could be a difficult.
Have you found it easy to live in this world?
No, I don't think I have at times. And there's times, quite frankly, of moments that I've not wanted to be in this world. And I tell you what gave me a lot of clarity, one amongst many, but I'm going to go with the most recent, is some of the teachings of Dolores Cannon and the 3 waves of volunteers. If anybody's not watch that video on YouTube. It's amazing. Or the book. And that gave me a lot of clarity about, you know, of course, to my understanding, it's our free will. We choose to come back. But always, sometimes, I suppose, we can forget what it's like on the earth when we're having these experiences. We can forget ourselves, get lost. It's like going into a video game or something, I suppose, and you get lost in it, and everything feels so real. Yeah, so I think it's, at times, it can be very challenging, especially in the times we're living in. For me, it's a very mostly exciting time to be on the earth. That's why we're coming back, because we don't want to miss the opportunity, most of us. Couldn't miss it. But also it can be very, I don't want to say hard, because nothing's hard really when we put our mind to it. Challenging. It can be challenging not to get drawn into things. There's a lot to grab your attention. There's a lot to lower your vibrations. There's really a little bit of a battle going on in a way.
And temptation. Yeah,
duality. That's what's happening. And that's why we come back, because I believe we know the power of unconditional love in the spirit world. But part of coming back to the earth is learning the power through it, through walking a bit more of a darker path, of walking and being the light in that darkness is the challenge. Being the light in the light is easy. It's being out there. So yeah, I think, you know, it can be very challenging, but my advice to anybody who feels that way is reach out to like-minded people. That's what gives me solace. Or read a book on somebody like-minded that you're drawn to, connect with podcasts, watch things, and then you'll see experiences and go, oh, I'm not the only one feeling that way, actually.
I think that's really important. Why is that really important? It's because people always think what they're feeling, they're the only ones that are feeling it.
You'll find there's about, you know, 100,000 people that are feeling the same, and that's to put it lightly. So yeah, it can be a very challenging world to live in. Things are changing all the time. We're constantly being challenged. We've set ourselves lessons. But something I would say is, if you get fed up, you're feeling really a little bit low with things, just ask, what is this situation teaching me? What am I learning? Stand back from it and view it, instead of getting lost in it. It's very easy to get lost in things. Yeah. So has that answered the question?
Yeah. And I think, just, you know, if things do get overwhelmed, just take a step back. Yeah.
You can always remember, in a way, one illusion for me is that you're not in control, and you are. You can take a step back. You can stop and take a breath. You can do that anytime. And by doing that, I had something given to me by Spirit many years ago, and it's the most simplest of things. And I must have said it millions of times in readings. It's like playing a chess game. If you and me were playing a chess game, and I'm looking and going, what's my next move? Staring at the board. What's it going to be? What's it going to be? I can't decide. But maybe if I was to take a step out of the room, have a breath of fresh air, come back in, that's what it was all along. So sometimes something I say a lot, intensity doesn't equal results. Sometimes it's take a step back and then look at the view. Got it. That's where it is.
Yeah, and that's why sometimes taking a break, a holiday is needed. You look at things so differently. You observe things rather than you think. It's like, how many times have we walked into a room and you're searching for a key and you're searching for your wallet, you can't find it, and then you walk out and you're like, right, pause and breathe. You walk in, it's right beside of you. Yeah. So it's, again, your mindset.
But you're almost looking too hard.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, being more present, I think my big thing is that I sometimes struggle to live in the world. Because when you look at things, you know, we're involved in the work where a lot of people are looking at conspiracy theories and things like that. And it can be so overwhelming to know what the darkness is. And the best thing to do is, we're aware of it, I'm aware of it, but I'm not going to feed it.
Well, what ties into it all is looking too far into the future. That's what I think it is. It's all,
definitely.
And that's why, myself included, I found myself being not very present sometimes. I'm trying to work on it. And it's because we're almost encouraged through our programming is what's going to happen next year. How many times have you heard somebody, they're going to press that button, they're going to press that button. And you have to come to the stage a bit. If whatever's going to happen has happened. I'll deal with what's on my plate today, because you really could be missing something quite special, or missing a sign that's being shown in front of you so clearly. So I think not worrying about what's down the road, and even those who try to do good by putting information out there can also feed into certain fears of the future as well, which really isn't going to manifest a positive outcome to me. It's all fear. Doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. If it's fear, and you know, a teacher that you've channeled that's worked with you, Little Raven, never forget years ago when he said, never make a decision out of fear. And I've never found that to be wrong. And when I have made a decision out of fear, I found it wasn't a good choice. So,
and that's been happening a lot in the world, isn't it? And
yeah, we're encouraged to, aren't we? We're encouraged to, what's going to happen in here? Look at the way we're schooled. Work all your life, get a mortgage, pay it off, and then if you're lucky, when you get to 70 or 80, you might enjoy it. It's a carrot on a stick.
Enjoy it now.
Well, we should be enjoying it now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thanks for answering that, Chris. Thank you.
Funny old life.
It is. Fire away. What's my next question?
Yes. Why do I look like I've got more in mind?
Because I think you wrote more. Right, let's have a look. What is a crystal you are drawn to and why? Wow, I thought we're not doing personal questions. What is a crystal you are drawn to and why? Wow, amazing. It was interesting that, because I was in the bath this morning and
where's this going?
Where's this going? And I remember years ago, about 18 years ago or 19 years ago, when we sort of first got into the spiritual movement, and you know, we didn't know anything about crystals or we meditated. We sat in a home circle, which was amazing. And I remember even then I went to buy some crystals online, and I remember buying a rough aquamarine crystal, and I've still got it. And there's a lovely crystal you put at the side of the bath, and my niece and my nephew was trying to steal it. It's a crystal I can't let go of, and it's a crystal for me that works really well with the throat chakra. And so it's an aquamarine rough crystal that I wear and I carry and I have in my bathroom. So that's a crystal that I really, really like. I'm very drawn to blue and pure crystals, but sort of my favorite crystal is probably the master crystal, clear quartz. Because the clear quartz sort of works really well with all aspects of healing. And I will carry a crystal with me, particularly the quartz crystal, when I do any kind of mediumship. Because when you're working with any kind of, with clients, healing or mediumistically, you're working with a lot, sometimes very heavy energy.
Yeah.
And I even felt that today doing readings, where I felt a little bit, a little bit heavy after. And sometimes when I need to clear that heavy energy, and I forget that sometimes. So the crystal reminds me, meditate, ground, close yourself down. And I use often the clear quartz, particularly on my evening meditations, because I find that my evening meditations, I work better in the evening. In the morning, I'm always last minute. I'm running around like a headless chicken.
So you'd say that be fair to say when people meditate, they're starting to meditate, if they're also drawn to crystals, it'd be a good combination?
Yeah, but then you've got the other side as well, where, and I find this also a lot of readings and talking to friends and stuff. They have like hundreds of crystals hundreds of crystals out and about, and then just imagine that they're all vibrating at a frequency. And I'm not saying for 1 minute crystals are negative. No, they're not. But they're all carrying a frequency of vibration. So just be very cautious where you store and where you put your crystals. Yes, they look pretty and they're gorgeous and they're amazing, but also just know what you're working with and respect them. And also I find as well that the crystal chooses you. You don't choose the crystal. So as again, we'll talk about your spirit guide as your work's changing and you're evolving and you're doing different type of work. Different crystals work with you at that time, and maybe for 6 months, 12 months, and then they change. Sometimes people say, I've lost my crystal, and I say, well, that's gone now. The work's done with that crystal. You've got to move on to the next one now. So great combination, crystals and meditation. A great one is sometimes after a bath, I'll lie on top of my bed, and I'll put the 7 crystals on my body, and it just helps realign my chakras a little bit.
I like doing that, 7 chakras.
I know you do. I know you like doing that as well, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's a very good time. Very good way to do that self-healing. You don't always need to like have a treatment as such. You can do this work. You can do self-healing practices with it.
The most important part of any kind of work is self-healing, self-meditation. So, Chris.
Very good.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay. Oh, as a man, what advice can you give to men who are struggling with mental health?
And I know we're touching upon that in the next podcast, but I think it would be great. So, and I want to ask you that as about you and your experience as a man.
My experience personally would be, I suppose, there's a certain energy that we carry, or the way we are as males, that not only, I suppose, is there an expectation for us to hold a certain amount, but there's an expectation we put on ourselves, more importantly, to hold things together or to take certain roles. There's nothing wrong with that.
Do you feel like you've done that in your family a lot, or not?
Not just in family, but in life perhaps, or hold your own, and I think, or hold yourself a certain way, be strong. And I think sometimes it's to know, and I think this is coming on more and more, there's no shame in having a moment of weakness
or vulnerability.
Yeah. In which vulnerability is a better word. Those moments when we're vulnerable, or we're feeling a bit, or we're feeling by sharing something, it makes us appear weak when it doesn't. I think it's a strength. I think all these things are strength, opening up and saying, I'm struggling and I need a little bit of help. And I'm seeing this more and more. And I think that's very important. I feel it's very important. There's a lot of discussions in the world happening on which I'm not going to touch on in this podcast about male and female, etc.
Yeah.
But I think there's a dynamic that's put out there that can give a certain pressure for people to take certain roles when we are who we are, as beings, as people. I think it's very important for men to come together as well and be in each other's company. I think that's important, and share experiences of all ages as well. So as a man, yeah.
Did you ever sort of grow up? I know with your dad and your brother, so predominantly in your household there was just your mum and then 3 men. I mean, what was that like growing up? Did you used to fight a lot? And
there was a lot of fighting and boxing matches and things like that with me and my brother. Things like that went on, which is it's kind of all part of growing up, that being silly, I suppose. But I think it's I look back at my childhood actually and think, I don't know if you call it fortunate or what it is, but I was never pushed to do one thing or the other. I can remember just doing what I wanted to do. I would do some things that were quite creative, and not necessarily things that men do, if that makes sense.
Well, like football and sports and things like that.
So I'd like sports and football and things, but the other thing, I like gardening, and I like planting being in the garden and things like that. I like art, and so I wasn't pushed one way or another.
So you're in a way, quite lucky with that. I mean, what about school? Did you feel that there was any sort of divide between men and girls, men and women?
I think it's I found it hard in high school.
What with because I think I mean, I know you a long time now, Chris, and probably some of your trauma comes from school, doesn't it? Probably the toxic, is it boys? And
yeah, that's hard, and yeah, very much so. And it's like a little bit, yeah, you learn a lot of lessons that way. I did in high school. It's almost like you're gonna crumble if you don't stick up for yourself a bit.
Toughen up.
Yeah, you have to toughen up and start. To a degree, he teaches you about boundaries, because it's a little bit like the law in the jungle. If you go around submitting to everybody, that's it. They're going to walk all over you. And it's not about fighting, but it's sometimes just about holding your own. And you find it doesn't have to come to that most of the time, when you just stand there and say, I'm not having this. And you can do one. And do you know what it comes back to? Fear. Because I found this, how many people when I was at school, they used to say, I'm going to do this after school and that or something. And they never do it. And I've learned in my life, if somebody's going to do something to you, they're just going to do it. They're not going to threaten. That's another thing about what's coming in the future. So you're like, whatever, just disarm them straight away, walk away from it. Yeah, so.
I mean, we talked about not long ago, didn't we, with your mum, and she probably won't mind me talking about it, actually, when we're looking back. And I've got a different perspective on things, because again, there is this agenda, I feel, in society, dismantle the community, the family home, where in your mum's era, you growing up in the 70s and 80s.
Mostly in the 80s.
Mostly in the 80s. that your mum basically ran the household, didn't she? She did the washing, the ironing. Your dad worked a lot, didn't he? He did.
Well, they both did, yeah. They worked in combination. So you had, really, going into the era, I don't know when it slipped in, but you would have gone with both parents had to go out to work to hold a household up, and that's not who goes, but they both had to go.
But then what I'm saying is that there's a lot of sort of negative things now that, which is great if both parents want to work, well, sometimes they have to work, that really the role as the mother with the children is a very sacred responsibility. That's a job in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it is with both, because you learn a lot of both your parents, don't you? In many ways. And what have you got now? You've got, and I'm not talking about either one of the sexes here, but you've got a lot of people who don't know how to cook, for example. And you find the majority of generations will learn how to cook from family members at home.
Absolutely.
They learn how to do certain DIY and trade jobs through the fathers, or maybe the mothers as well. I don't want to put one thing on one sex there, but that's where you learn a lot. And I mean, we're not going to get into that, but that's why they want you at school early for me, because you learn a lot in the family. That's you learn an awful lot, don't you? But in most families, I can only speak from my experiences, but yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, with me personally, I mean, growing up, I probably grew up quite in a toxic masculine energy.
Yeah, so that's a different dynamic.
I mean, I remember, being quite feminine, for creative and very sensitive as a young boy, and I remember my stepdad being this expectation to be a certain way, and is frowned upon if you show any feminine traits, which then really suppresses.
Well, yeah, and we've heard it. I've heard it of many people that I've encountered, particularly on my spiritual path, where they've been told, shut up and get on with it. Basically, suck it up and get on. And that can be, people can carry that on throughout their entire life then.
Yeah.
And hold it. But it's good at the minute, because we experienced one men's gathering group last year. That was
just
really
an amazing experience.
And there's more and more people coming together that way. And
changed our perspective, because we were never agreed with separating men and women.
Yeah,
but it was great
and take away the male or the female part of it, and people coming together is important, switching off things and just coming together and joining together and talking, sharing experiences as a community.
Absolutely. Very deep.
We went off with it with that, didn't we?
Amazing. Great.
Whose turn is it?
My turn. Your magical questions. Right. Oh,
Oh.
what are your thoughts of manifesting? Can anyone do it? Wow. Yes. On the science side, you are what you think. You are what you create. And on a personal note, something that I've been really delving into these past 12 months, 2 years, where I'm manifesting, learning about using the language of I am. That's who I am. So if I'm learning that that's who I am, and that's the vibration I'm giving off to the universe. And I tried to say this to people in readings as well, that, you know, when we look at relationships, what you don't heal, you attract. So if you've got unhealed trauma, or you have lack of self-worth, or you don't feel that you are worthy, or you have a really bad relationship with money, then you are vibrating that out to the universe. You're giving off that frequency, and you're manifesting that out to the universe, and that's what you're going to attract.
Yeah.
So I'm really getting into saying, this is who I am. And often, nearly every night, I will start off by saying, I am who I am, and that is enough. That I am who I am, and that is enough.
Good.
And I can feel it manifesting in my stomach, and I'm getting there, and I'm using other mantras to say, I am light, I am love, I am abundant. So they are the things that I use. Everything begins with a thought of an idea that we channel through. And really, on the other hand as well, you can alter your vibration into an altered reality to say, this is what I'm going to attract. Obviously, if you're going to say, right, I'm going to attract to be a millionaire, well, that might not be manifested, because sometimes money is not something that's going to bring you ultimate happiness.
Yeah.
You know, we've met a lot of people that are very, very rich, that they're absolutely miserable.
It plays into the thing, be careful what you ask for.
Absolutely. Be careful what you wish for, be careful what you manifest. So yeah, anyone can manifest anything that they desire. And I think that's something that I've learned sort of from Osho in some of his teachings, that, you know, everything begins with the flame, the passion, your desire. And I say to people, you know, and I pose the question to people and with clients, instead of asking the angels and spirit and the guides, what shall I do? Well, what do you think you should do?
Yeah.
What do you want to manifest? Absolutely. Everybody always looks at, for spirit. Yes, we are spirit. And also, you know, we don't work for spirit. We work with spirit. We're working with the universe. The universe is our friend. So it's law of attraction. It's the mirror effect.
So would you say, as accepting, as we step into manifestation, part of it is accepting that we are part of the universe and not separate from it?
Absolutely. We're part of nature. We're part of everything. Yeah. We are what we attract. And also going back to the question of karma, psychic debt, we are what we attract. So really, where you are in your life and what's happening in your life at this moment is exactly where you're meant to be.
Yeah.
The people that are around you, the friends, the family, the life you've had, it's not by accident. The universe does not punish anybody. Spirit do not punish. We don't punish ourselves. Where we are is exactly where we need to be. No one's better or worse. Some people are more elevated than others, are maybe more grown than others. Maybe their lights are maybe a little bit brighter, but ultimately we are all on that path. And we're here we are creators. And I think this is what part of people's awakening is. People don't realize how powerful you are. And I think we both realize, and I know you don't realize what powerful creators were. We are God. And David Icke talked about it. He was laughed about it in the 80s and the 90s. And we are made from the same cosmic light of the universe, God, the creator, however you want to perceive it. We're here to create, we're here to manifest. And I can't reinforce that to people as much as I can. We are what we create. You know, when we talk about healing, for example, oh, I'm sick. If you say you're sick, you will always be sick.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, I you know, family who are ill, and I go around, I will not get sick because I am healthy. I am well. So I always start with I, because that commands my spirit that is where I am, that state of being.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember we did a podcast with a guy called Chris, and he was talking about freedom. And it's this perception that the toxic side of the awakening movement is saying, we need to be free. We need to fight. We need to be free. And actually that's wrong. We are already free.
Yeah.
That's the self-realization. I am free. I'm not imprisoned. It's the dark or the shadow want us to believe that we are not free, because remember, there's choice and free will. So I am free. I am sovereign being. I'm not becoming, because I already am.
Yeah.
I don't become spirit. I am spirit.
Yeah.
So that is my sort of thoughts. What about you?
Manifesting. Yeah, I think anybody can manifest. I think.
What kind of stuff do you manifest?
I think it requires your participation as well.
You're doing, absolutely. You have to participate.
You have to do your part. Everything, you know.
So what's the thing that you want to...
I've had some on either side where I've thought something and then it's happened and I was like, oh God, I manifested that. I need to be really more careful what I ask for.
I have noticed that these past few months.
Oh yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So next question.
Okay. What advice would you give to those who are struggling to fit into their families or school, etc.? Oh, that's following a bit of a theme here for me, isn't it? What advice are you following struggling to fit in? Do you know what my advice would be? And I was talking with this about this in a reading today, is if you are struggling to fit in, don't assume that you are the problem or you... And it was some of the best advice I was given in the first circle we sat in. And there was about 10, 11 people in that spiritual circle. And the lady who's running it, Anita, she said, just because one person's picking up one thing and the others don't, doesn't mean that one person is wrong. So maybe if you're feeling you're not quite fitting in, maybe that school, that lesson isn't for you. If you're not fitting in with a particular group of people, maybe they're not the like-minded people. But that doesn't mean it's not meant to happen, because maybe you're putting yourself in that situation to learn something. There's always something to be learned in every situation, even if it's, this isn't for me, and coming to that point. So like struggling to fit in is not a bad thing. That's the first thing I would say.
Have you heard
There's
the expression?
Nothing wrong with you. It's just might not be for you. You've not maybe found the right people that you resonate with, or the right situation, or maybe things need to settle for you. It could be loads of things, but the most important thing is nothing wrong with you if you're having them feelings. You're not the odd one out. That's another awful phrase that needs kicking out.
But do you not get in readings a lot as well, in some of the psychotherapy work and other work we do here at the centre, that people say, oh, I felt like the black sheep of the family.
Yeah, that's another thing in family. In terms of family, if you're feeling that way, I think it's okay. Because there's two sides of it.
Yeah.
One side is you've chosen that family for a reason. So there's something to
that's
number one. That's number one. But the other one is, and I ask this to people who are struggling and who've asked my advice about family situations, how would you treat it if they weren't your blood relatives and you were friends? How would you treat the situation? Because the other side of it is we can feel that they have to be loyal and suffer, because it's something I always say, we all have choice, we all have free will, we can do whatever we want really we really can, without other people suffering the choice of them consequences. We're not here to be punished for somebody else's choices, or not here to be a punching bag. So it depends where it lands, There's a lot of people that feel that way, don't they, in the world, that they feel misplaced in the family. But coming back to it, which is a tough one, but to me it's a truth, is you have chose that family for a reason. So what's the lesson? What's it teaching you? Or maybe you come back to teach them. Who knows? But
then also what you might have as well, and you're finding this a lot with people, and I think this is where there's a massive misunderstanding, particularly in the medical profession, when we label people with ADHD or they've got mental health problems and actually they can't find anything. And I find this with a lot of young children now, where parents are struggling, and at the end of the day, they're vibrating at a frequency that is very different to a lot of people. So they're going to feel different. Their connection with spirit is very much deeper.
Exactly.
They would know things that we don't know. So again, as parents, so looking on the other perspective.
Well, that's it. And you could be in school and very simply put, you might not be resonating with what's being taught.
Did you ever feel different growing up? Did you ever feel different, or did you feel very much part of things?
In school, trying to remember, mostly, yeah, but there was a lot that didn't interest me. History being a big one. And I sort of make more sense of it now. I just thought I was lazy at the time coming out of it, or I was a bit, but no, a lot of it didn't resonate with me.
But you talk about your experiences with school, so you're saying you struggled with school. Now, if you had the magic wand and you can go back in time, do you feel that school was not for you? If you could maybe do something more on the practical?
No, because there was something there to experience.
So do you feel that you come back to have that experience?
Yeah. Not that I don't regret things, but I don't think you should have regrets as a rule, because I think you experience what you experience for a reason.
Would you not say that's difficult as a child, though? Because in a lot of ways you still rely on your mum and your dad. And I know parents who take the children out of school, homeschool them.
Yeah, I can understand it. It's happening more and more because it's not nourishing. I don't want to tar everybody with the same brush. There's some wonderful teachers there who really care about what they're doing, and I know there's a lot of schools bringing in meditation, etc. I don't know, so I don't want to comment on something that I don't fully know, if that makes sense. But my experiences was there was a lot of it that wasn't too nourishing, and I found it more nourishing when I got out in the world and started meeting people and doing things practical. Then there was people that I met that I really enjoyed being around, so you wouldn't have done that. So it's like being in a job sometimes you don't like, but you meet some really good people, so it's worth being in it.
Yeah, and I think my advice as well, and I often try to tell mums and dads in particular, when they say, I'm having a really difficult time with my son or my daughter, and actually a lot of the time it's actually not the children, it's the parents. It's a projection from the parents on the children, because a lot of the time the children are all right. So really, as an advisement of this podcast, I try to say to people, uncles, grandparents, is whatever that child's going through, ask this question: how are they making you feel? So and it might be often frustration. That child's frustrating me or making me feel angry. The most likely that is what that child is going through. So stop, observe. Why is that child going through that at that moment? And these old systems, like you talk about, really no longer serve the modern spirit. The spirits that are coming back.
So next question.
Amazing.
I've lost track now. That was mine, wasn't it? So yours.
Top advisements for dealing with anxiety and depression.
Oh, we're on the same route here. We're going down.
We are, and it's interesting because we didn't know actually what questions we were going to give each other, and it sort of themes into the podcast. Top advisement. So, I'm not going to sit there preach to people. Let me talk about my own personal experience. Yeah. So, dealing now, again, I'm going to be quite controversial here because for years I've talked about anxiety and depression, and this was the toxic side of my upbringing, where you deal with things your own way, you deal with them internally, you don't talk about your vulnerability, or there wasn't that space for me to open up my vulnerability, to share my depression. Looking back, as a young boy, I was deeply depressed through physical, mental abuse growing up, and I can look back on that as a learning, of course. So on the depression side, as a young boy, I majorly struggled at school, not having friends, being bullied, and then all stuff going off at home. But then recently, losing my mum and two very close friends in a year, I would suffer from anxiety, the panic attacks, this panic. And because I've never experienced that before, I would often advise people, I was actually going through something that I've never experienced in my life before. And I have to say, it was horrendous. It was horrible. But I'm looking back now, my advisement was I was very lucky that I had you and your mum, and I had my Adam, my partner, and some wonderful friends in the community here at the Purple Mountain. And that's been a godsend to me personally, that I was able just not as much just open up and talk, because I'm not like that. I rather ask people questions.
Yeah.
That's the way I am.
You're more the inquisitor.
Yeah, I'm more of the inquisitor. But just really somebody just being there, just going for a coffee. I think that, you know, if when somebody dies, the worst thing you can do is, how are you? Are you okay? I sometimes just be there for that person, help me. But other advisement was, if I didn't like it at the time, really lean into those feelings.
Yeah, that's very.
Oh my God! And we both talk about it, don't we? When we lost Margaret, I don't like using the word lost. She's not lost; she's in the light.
Yeah.
But gone through some very difficult time for us at the Purple Mountain. We can openly say that, and it was horrendous. It was bad, but we weren't on our own, and we lean into that uncomfortability. And in a way, for the first time, really gone through something that we often preached and talked about. Now, looking from the other side, I can honestly say, and I'm not saying it in an arrogant way, massive gratitude to those experiences, and we're still going through that. So it's not as much dealing with it, because we're not fighting anything, we're not dealing anything. It's just really accepting, lean into those uncomfortable feelings. And I remember having a reading with Joe Harrison, and it was amazing advisement, because I'll be sat there and I was feeling this darkness in me brewing, and it made me so sick and horrible. And it was a horrible feeling, this anxieties, palpitations. And really, she said the best advisement that Archangel Metatron is saying to you is just really, when you're feeling that in a meditation, sit with it.
Yeah.
Sit with that darkness, allow that energy to surface. And the more I was sitting with it, the more it was alleviating. So if you imagine your body being an electrical system, what often we do as human beings, what I do is suppress, push back down, don't talk about it, don't show it.
Yeah,
and you know, that's a massive flaw of mine. And now we just talk about what you're feeling. It's okay. You know, allowing people to hold space for you. The other thing, without me rabbiting on too much, is meditation and breath work. And I remember when I really got into breath work, is breathe, use your breath. And that's, you know, suffering from anxiety, because I used to have this horrendous fear where I thought I was going to close my eyes, not wake up again, this fear of sleep. And the only thing that helped me overcome that anxiousness, that anxiety, was breathing and meditation, and actually really leaning into that fear, no matter how uncomfortable it was. Stephen, you can't die.
Yeah.
What? Stephen, you can't die. You can't die the death of you. You can't die. So what are you worrying about? So that was my advisement that I can give on my own thing when we talk about things like grief, because that's a bit of a taboo. No one talks about grief, and we were talking about, weren't we, that we would love to create maybe a workshop on how to deal with grief, and actually, you know, dreams and connecting with spirit, you know, on a deeper level, has brought me great peace of mind to know that the people you love actually are okay. What are you worrying about? You're fine. You're gonna be okay. And it's like having Cambo for the first time, and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. This is going to be horrendous. And you're going through it, and actually it's going to pass in 20 minutes. You're going to be fine. You're going to get through to the other side. Yeah, amazing. So what about you? Well, what's the top thing you've dealt with or dealing with in terms of anxiety?
Top advisement for dealing with anxiety for me would personally be lean into whatever feelings you're having. I feel like walking amongst nature, taking a walk is good. Getting outside, don't get stuck in with the curtains shut. Don't get stuck in a rut in a cave too much. Get yourself out there, get some fresh air. Even if it's 5-10 minutes, go and meet up with like-minded people. Don't hide away. Yeah.
Amazing.
So we'll do one more? Last one?
Oh no, let's do a couple more. Come on.
So I want to deepen my connection with spirit. How can I do this? So it's interesting. We get asked this a lot.
Yes.
And I would say deepening your connection with spirit, first be you, because if spirit are connecting with you in a certain way and elevating certain gifts, they're doing it because you are you, not because they want you to be some carbon copy of somebody else. So lean into what are your attributes, what are your strengths, what are your gifts. Be relaxed, take a breath into things, don't get too intense. Meditate if you can, lean into holistic practices, go for walks, connect with the earth. I feel that's and go with the flow of the river.
That's amazing advice, Ben. Because we get asked that all the time, don't we? Mediums and psychics, and they'll do one course after another, and really, it's when we talk about meditation, and I practice it. I tried to preach this all the time in a positive manner. That really, meditation, people complicate things like yoga and meditation. Actually, meditation is so mind-blowingly simple. It's just about being present. Yeah. That's what meditation is. Just be yourself. Just close your eyes, do a bit of breath work. Just be you in that present. And that's all you can be. Because what was that story you told us about Osho? Was that Osho about the Buddha?
Oh, yeah. We said, so you're seeking to be Buddha, but you are already. And then there's some people who think they're Buddha and they're not. I
love that.
That's another story.
Story.
That was John Hogue.
Was it John Hogue?
So check that episode out.
Right. Well, this is a big one. Name a spiritual book or movie that has inspired you.
Oh, this is a good one to finish on this. Good.
Yeah, amazing. Well, going back to the question you asked me before, in terms of, how do you overcome anxiety and depression? When I went through that year and a half of grief, a movie that really helped me shed so many tears and helped me open my heart, which was The Shack.
Yeah.
The movie The Shack. And I remember watching the movie with my partner Adam, and I just cried for about an hour, just cried, because it just made sense with the hidden gems of knowledge and inspiration. Yeah, you take what you can with movies and books, but the other movie that I got really inspired with, which was Where Dreams May Come.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Robin Williams.
Yeah.
And
Robin Williams, not Robbie.
Not Robin Williams. Robin Williams. Yeah. Bless his soul. And I feel that is an amazing film as well. Great representation of what spirit, what the spirit world could be, and the beauty that holds there. I would be here forever to name all the spiritual books. Bringers of the Dawn is a recent book that I read, really. People wanting to know a lot of the Dolores Cannon books. I try on me personally, I have read a lot of books, but it's life itself that's taught me a lot. People have taught me, you've taught me a lot about life. So, and sometimes when I read books, that I can understand that. And some books are like, no, I can't understand that. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say, oh, that's a terrible book. Well, sometimes you get what you can from certain teachings and writings, don't you? So, so that's a couple of things that help me with grief. And with poetry.
With the books and the movies.
But books and movies. So that's really helped. What about you? Is any sort of books?
Books, yeah. One that comes to mind is Conversations with God. That's a very good one. It sounds very religious, but it isn't at all.
Very simple, isn't it?
Very, very simple. In terms of, The Bringers of the Dawn as well. Excellent book. Some of David Icke's books. There's been many books that I've sort of lent into and got a lot from, and I struggle to finish one. I'll go from chapter to chapter and jump, which is all for a reason and a purpose, really. In terms of movie, I think The Shack is an excellent movie about forgiveness, self-forgiveness and grief as well. I think that's a really good film. I like What Dreams May Come as well. I actually like, I don't know if this is, it's not really controversial, but the film Ghost as well.
Yeah, that's quite a good one as well.
Pretty good, that.
Music's lovely in that.
Pretty well inspired, and it's nice. And considering it, the timeline, but there are some early films. What's that film that you used to like, the black and white one, with a guy and he was in a fighter plane? And then he had to look back on his life.
I think it was filmed in the 40s or 30s, I think. So,
and that inspired you quite a bit at the time. It was very thought-provoking.
It was, and I remember mentioning it to Anita and Roy, and I remember Anita watching it, and she said, yeah, and that was great, that. So if anybody... I think that's a great representation.
We'll try and post what it is.
We'll post on the comments, actually, when we post the podcast.
Black and white one, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and he dies.
Just give a little bit of the premise. Again,
so basically, he's a fighter pilot, and he crashes, and something happens to him, and his soul goes to spirit, and he decides if he wants to live or go back to the earth.
Yeah.
And he will sit, and there's different guides and inspirers there, and it's like Stairway to Heaven. It's the way you perceive things. But again, don't take things when you watch things so literal. Take them as a great representation, teachings and philosophy behind it. So I think as we finish off the podcast...
There's another one.
Oh.
Soul as well.
Cartoon.
Some of the cartoons have a tremendous amount of...
Coco.
Moana, Cacao, yeah. Some great ones there. Very inspiring.
There's hidden messages in every film in a certain degree. Not all.
Yeah, not all. They don't have to be spiritual books either. You can read a story and it can be very inspiring, uplifting, can't it? Fiction.
Absolutely. So I think as we finish off the podcast there, I hope that everybody that watched it found this interesting. We'd love to do more. Love to hear your feedback.
Yeah, and there's more episodes coming up. If you haven't checked out our previous episodes,
Some
there's lots
amazing
to
guests
go out on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you are. If you've got any questions, or maybe you want to chip in with some comments on the answers that we've given, or you'd like to see another bonus episode like this again, we'll be happy to do it as we start to create a studio, which is going to be exciting for 2024. So we hope to connect with you on the next episode, sending our love and best wishes until we speak again. Thank you,
everybody. Bye.